Adam Goodmannel fogunk majd beszélgetni hollywoodi filmsikerek kulisszatitkairól, amelyeket itt forgattak Budapesten. Adam, thanks for being here and welcome here. You know, when I was coming to here, I was thinking about what a producer actually does in the everyday life. And okay, I found a lot of things. But how can you describe and how can you explain what is your job actually? Who are you?
Well, I could sum it up very quickly and very shortly by saying everything. Because as a producer, there shouldn't be anything that you're not involved in to make a project the best it can be under the circumstances that you're making it. So whether it be financial issues, whether it be location issues, whether it be crew issues, every element of a film, every element of a good film is brought together by a producer. There are different types of producer, but the overriding factor is that person should be able to spend the money that's available in the most creative way. Creative meaning that they spend in the right areas, and that when you say no to something, it has a meaning. You're not just saying no because you want to be a tough, single-minded person. You're saying no because you're trying to bring everybody's ideas and opinions and approaches and bring them together as one. And when you bring those together as one, you can harness everybody's talent into what everybody hopes will be a great movie.
So you are not only a financial manager, but how can I say, you are the problem-solving guy of your own Pulp Fiction.
Therapist, psychologist, it's, you know, we are problem solvers because when you make a movie, you spend many, many months preparing in the most finite detail, in the most incredible detail. You have breakdowns and notes and schedules, and then day one of filming, it can all go out the window. And you have to have the stamina, and I think the strength of character to be able to rise to those challenges, sometimes on a daily basis. I mean, some films are more challenging than others. Very few do not have any challenges at all. It's quite interesting after all these years, and you think there are certain types of project that you imagine at the very beginning will be easy. And I now realize, it's taken me a while, but I now realize there's no such thing. Because whether a film is $1 million or $200 million, there are very similar issues. The cost might be very different, the value of that issue might be different, but there's never enough money, there's never enough time on any movie. I mean, it's very interesting actually that those two things, money and time, are applicable to a student film, to a Hollywood movie, to a Hungarian movie, to an Italian movie. It's the same everywhere. And I think, to go back to your question as to what a producer does, I think it's our job to assess how much money we have and how much time we have, and to bring those two into alignment.
You said you had some challenges during your career. It's not surprising for me. And you've been working here in Hungary for more than 15 years, I guess. Or 15
yes.
years around, something like that.
Around 15 years, yes.
Have you ever had those kind of challenges when you thought that, hey guys, probably it would be better if I leave this whole country?
No, quite the opposite actually, because you know, what brought me to Hungary was, you know, it wasn't by design, it wasn't my plan to settle in Hungary as a producer. I came here as a result of doing a film here, and it felt like the right place for me to establish my career, or to build the rest of my career here. But I think the question you ask anywhere in the world on many films you do in your career at certain times. I've had many situations where I've got back to my hotel at night or my apartment, and I thought, life is too short. There has to be another way. And then you realize that actually it's those kind of pressures sometimes that actually make the film business exciting. Now, of course, when I wake up in the morning every day, I hope I'm not going to walk on the set or walk to the office and have 10 problems, but I know I'm going to have one. And it's actually that makes it exciting, because you have to adapt and you have to rise to those challenges. So have I ever wanted to throw the towel in, as they say, in Hungary? Yes, but I've wanted to throw the towel in England or the US or other places. So I think what I can say is, and I've said it before, so some people may have heard this, that have heard me speak, but is that the filmmaking culture in Hungary is a great part of what kept me here. So my experiences of working on films here, big and small, have generally been fantastic. For many reasons, but one of the big reasons is the crew. I mean, the crew have become friends, they've become family. MidAtlantic as a company has established relationships with so many crew and vendors that it really does feel like the right place to be. So when you have that kind of relationship with people, it makes dealing with problems that much easier. There's always exceptions. There's exceptions to everything. But it's true to say that I think the ethic that we being the Hungarian community, film community, has, I think, is something to be admired.
Which was not the hardest, but the most difficult production in Hungary what you had?
I think the most challenging at the time, and maybe still is, was Die Hard 5, because when you read the script and every third page was an explosion or a gunfire or a car chase, knowing what you're up against in any capital city in the world, and Hungary is no different. It has its bureaucracy, it has its red tape that you have anywhere else. But knowing that and reading a script where you're not just going to be shutting down 20 meters, you're going to be shutting down 1,800 square meters of real estate to do a scene, was a little frightening, I have to say. And I mean, we wouldn't have turned it down. In retrospect, had that film happened a few years earlier, I'm not so sure we as a company or the town as a filmmaking capital would have been able to support the show so well. But, the challenges of shutting down, flying helicopters across Elizabeth Bridge, and, I have to say, Mr. Vanya had more than one phone call a day from us asking for his help and his assistance, which he gave. So I think what that film proved was that the film infrastructure here was sophisticated enough, and the city itself, the mayor of Budapest, the 5th district mayor, the districts where we spent a lot of time, we met with them, we sat around large tables with large groups of people who I was fearful of, that I thought, they're never going to say yes to us shutting down Uloy and blowing up a garbage truck, on a Sunday afternoon. But they did. They embraced it, because I think they realized that actually the publicity that comes from doing a film, executing a film like that in your capital city, is pretty terrific. Whether you like the film, hate the film, it almost doesn't matter. The fact is that when you look at what was achieved on the streets of Budapest, you struggle to do it in anywhere else.
Is it easy to get huge names, big stars to here, to Budapest? Is it
No.
easy to invite them?
It is, and actually it's a good question, because people don't often realize that when a film, you get the script, you have your locations, you have your sets, and you get a map of the world out, and you say, okay, well, which country has a tax incentive, which country has the best skilled crew base. But after all of that, if you have a lead actor, star actor, they will have to be asked, are you comfortable moving from LA or New York or London, wherever they are, and spending 6 months in a foreign city? And we know how uninformed some people are as to Hungary, Budapest. Do they even know where it is? You know, it's not necessarily clear to people that Budapest is what it is. And so that question is always asked of a Hollywood A-lister. And to my knowledge, nobody's ever said, we don't want to come to Budapest. And I think quite the opposite now. You know, when you've had, you know, the Matt Damons and the Dwayne Johnsons and the Tom Hanks and so forth, and the directors as well, you know, the Ron Howards and Ridley Scotts, you know, that confirms what people hear. It's kind of like it's interesting. We're now going through a period, and hopefully it'll continue for many years to come, where the success of a film's ability to shoot in the capital city creates a word of mouth where people say, well, you know, Budapest it ticks all the boxes: stages, crew, tax incentive, 4 seasons, Ritz-Carlton. People also don't always realize that having those Michelin star restaurants and there's those 5-star hotels actually do play a part in the profile of Budapest as a filmmaking capital, because it kind of adds credibility to the whole process.
Actually, who takes the responsibility for the A-list stars? What do I mean? Now we can see Harrison Ford all around in this small town. You know, we have, or almost all of the Budapest people have their daily little Harrison Ford story. You can see him in a Greek restaurant. He bought a bicycle. You can see him countryside. I don't know, everywhere in the country. How can it be? How can it be? How he can be allowed to go anywhere? You know, it's a huge production. There are millions of dollars.
I don't see Budapest as it's not a risk. It's, you know, him walking the streets is not a risk. I think what is interesting, which I've seen on recent films, is there are certain actors that are very visible, like Harrison Ford, Matt Damon, even Tom Hanks, who would, you know, they come out of the front of the hotel, they're in restaurants, and, you know, yes, people come up to them and ask for autographs, and they want their photographs taken with them and so forth. But in general, by being that visible, you take away the mystery, you take away the chase of trying to get that photograph. And whether they do it intentionally, and I think they do, they're smart enough to know that by doing that, you kind of, well, so what? So you've taken a picture of me, you know, and people will continue to take pictures of you. But if you're an actor or a famous person anywhere that is a recluse, that wants to live in the shadows, despite their high-profile name, then the moment you walk out of a hotel or get out of a taxi, or you're going to be on the radar. People are going to want to, you know. So I think Harrison Ford is, and I think he's, you know, from what I've seen and from what I know, you know, he's enjoying being somewhere different. You know, it's not LA, it's not New York, it's somewhere, you know, that's one of the great luxuries of our business, that you know, you travel and you spend time in a capital city, and if you're lucky enough to spend time in somewhere like Budapest, you can, you know, more and more crew now that come here leave saying, I wonder how I can get back. I wonder how, you know, how I can make Budapest somewhere, even if I don't want to live there, how do I get back to do another show here? Because they have generally have such a good experience.
Have you ever lost a star, or have you ever being afraid of losing a star. I mean, as they are moving free in the city, probably, how can I say, they can lose their time, you know, and when every minute counts, because it's question of millions of dollars, the whole cast are waiting for these guys.
When an actor is out and about, generally speaking, he's not working that day. So there's no real risk. There's more of a risk when an actor, and this happens a lot on every movie, when an actor says, I want to fly to Toronto or Venice for a film festival, or I want to fly to LA for the weekend, and you know he's in the first scene in the first setup on a Monday morning. That can make you nervous. Yes, because as you say, you know the daily cost of a movie on a big Hollywood movie is significant, as you can imagine. But I think day to day in the city, no. And they generally don't go on their own. There's always an assistant or you know, a bodyguard or someone that's with them. So I remember when Keanu Reeves was here, he also, you know, he's a very private man. And yet he also, in fact, I remember coming to see a film here, riding on the escalator up to the cinema here, seeing him with his baseball cap on. But you know, so he was also someone that wanted to explore the city and you know, and enjoy the city. Of course, it's you know, the paparazzi and the less educated media, as there is in every place. That can be, I find that hurtful, even though it's not about me. It's about, you know, it could be about one of our films, or it can be about one of our actors or someone on the crew. You know, you do take it personally when you help bring a film to Hungary. You consider it to be your kind of your baby. You know, you want everything to be perfect. You know, you want the best weather, you know, the best experiences. You want people to go out in the evening and say they had the best meal. And when things happen, and things do happen, you can sometimes feel a little bit, you know, a little hurt that it's, and you worry about, you know, you want the reputation. Every film you do, and this was my motto on every film I did as an assistant director, as a production manager, as a line producer. I always said to myself, every film I do could be my last film. You have to assume that your reputation and people's opinion of you as a professional are based on the last show you do, not on the show you did 5 years ago, because people have short memories. Sometimes they have long memories when it doesn't matter. But so for us, I use the same philosophy with regard to the films we do, in that I want every experience to be first rate, and that's, you know, on a film like, you know, like Blade Runner or Inferno, or one of these big movies with a lot of moving parts. There's so many things happening all the time. It's you know, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. But that's, you know, again, that's why people like me do what they do. It's not to you know, it's not to lay in bed and do nothing. It's to get out there and fix.
Can I be a little bit cruel? You had a lot of works, blockbusters, smaller, bigger movies, but you can pick up only one. What is your, how can I say, probably most favorite, or what
that I've worked on?
Yes, or what are you the proudest on?
Proudest, well, that I can answer that question very easily, but qualify it in the position I was in. What I'm most proud of was I was the key second assistant director on Saving Private Ryan. And when Spielberg in America, when the director wins the Directors Guild of America award, his director's team win with him. So in my career to date, that was clearly the most, you know, the film was a critical and a financial success, and you know, so that film for me will always be very personal, and I'm very proud of it. But it's interesting because I'm actually proud of every movie I've ever done, from films that are so bad I wouldn't name them, but in terms of how the film was executed, how it was brought together, I'm very proud. So it's, you know, I don't have, Saving Private Ryan stood out for me because it was very special, because of the circumstances and because of the film itself. But as far as a producer, it'd be hard to pick up one.
Sorry, I will be a little bit personal now. Most of my childhood was about Spielberg's films, like the E.T., the Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones. You know, I was born in the 80s, so it's not surprising. How was it for you to work together with Steven Spielberg?
It was frightening at the beginning, and then exciting, and then just it's the only film. It's actually one of the few films I've ever done where even being behind the camera felt real. I mean, because we know that a film is, you know, behind that camera is 300 people, sometimes more. So working with him and directors like him, you know, Ridley Scott, Ron Howard, you know, they're of a type of professional where all of them have for me, one thing in common. I think it's something that everybody in the movie business should strive for, which is the more you know about someone else's job, the better you will be at your own. And with Spielberg, it was very interesting because he would wait for nobody, not for Janusz Kaminski, Oscar-winning DOP, not for The Grip or The First Date. He drove the set because he knew how long things should take, and if they took longer, he wouldn't wait. So people had to step up. They had to rise to his pace. And other directors, you know, of his caliber are very similar. You know, they are so prepared. They know exactly what they want. Guillermo del Toro on Hellboy 2, which we did here, the same. You know, these are directors that the vision they have for the movie they want to make is already photographed in their brain. It's already, you know, and you know, I always like telling this story, which was on The Martian. I remember going into the office at Quarter Studios, and on my desk was a big pile of paper like this, and I could see it had storyboards on it. You know, storyboards being each frame of the film as the director. And normally you rarely storyboard every frame of the movie. It's for action or stunts or visual effects or something where you want to make sure people understand the frame you're trying to achieve. And Ridley Scott, and I believe he does this on every movie, had himself drawn the frames for every frame in the movie. And these are months before we turned 1 meter of film, as it were. And when you work with directors and professionals like that, there's something very inspiring, you know, that someone can have such a creative, visual, but organized mind that he can put his ideas and thoughts on paper months before. And, you know, working with directors like Spielberg and Ridley Scott and others, it makes sometimes when you work with a different type of director, maybe equally talented in their own way, maybe more spontaneous, not so organized, it's very hard sometimes to adapt to that way of thinking. You know, you're so used to the organizational mind of a brilliant, you know, brilliant director, and then you have a different type of brilliant director, just not as organized.
As you work all the time on the films, don't you get rid of them? I mean, can you allow yourself to go to movies?
Yes, yes.
To cinemas?
No, absolutely, yeah, no, I do. And I mean, I think I'm a good test for a movie because I love movies. I love going to the movies. And if I see a film, I sit in the cinema here and I'm engaged and I'm not looking at whether the extra in the background is miming or talking, or whether the continuity of the car is in the same place and in the reverse. If I'm not doing that, then it means the film has, it's grabbed my attention. And I've always said, and I think most people would agree, that when you leave a cinema, if you're only talking about that film for 5 or 10 minutes after, the film hasn't succeeded. It hasn't done the job that it's supposed to do, because I think a film should leave such a mark that it creates questions. It doesn't have to be an intellectual or even thought-provoking. It's a comedy, or but it has to have something that makes you want to talk about it afterwards. I wouldn't be happy with any film where the only experience was 110 minutes or 120 minutes. That to me is it's not enough.
What are the movies what you are waiting for really, 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 as a moviegoer, not a producer?
To work on or just to watch?
Just to watch.
You know, all of the typical genre movies that you know, that I mean, I like as a cinema going person. I like any kind. I mean, I don't have a specific kind of movie that I particularly like. I know what I like, but I don't look. There's not certain films that I particularly, you know, look after. I mean, you know, the Marvels and the Bourne Ultimatums and you know, films like that. You know, I think they can, after a while, I guess I'm not as passionate about those films after a while. I prefer something that is more unique and more unusual and is kind of is not part of a brand, shall we say.
Dear Adam, thank you. Thanks
pleasure.
for the interview. And thanks for being here.